Welcome, Juventini, back to the all Juvecast, and we're gonna have some fun with this one. Episode 152, covering the Derby Della Mole that ended in a 2-2 draw between Juve and Torino. And covering this one with me, I've got Colin and Trevor. Guys, you able to drown some of the pain in some beverages last night, or what?
Yeah, just one or two.
It was horrible.
Yeah, it was a tough one for sure. Tough one for sure. So we're gonna do our best and try and recap everything that went down. Give our thoughts on this club, where they stand, and where we go from here and whatnot. And I mean, in the build-up, of course, there was a lot of nonsense going on with the banning of Artur, McKennie, Dybala, that whole situation, whether it had been blown out of proportion by media or whatnot. The club and Pirlo made their stand, finding the players. Those three were unavailable for this match as well. And that's just a fact. Regardless, the team that we lined up with, Szczesny in goal. Obviously, he was a bit suspect coming back from international duty. They were waiting for his testing to go okay with COVID. But Szczesny in goal, across the back, Quadrado, De Ligt, Chiellini, and Sandro, Kulusevski, Danilo, Bentancur, and Case across the middle with Morata and Ronaldo up top. Regardless, that lineup, strong enough to beat Torino, in my opinion, and shouldn't have been a big concern. How did you guys feel? Same?
Yeah, I mean, it should definitely have been enough to beat Torino, and not to say it was a decent performance, but for a couple of major errors, we would have beaten them.
Yeah, absolutely. Trevor, any issues with the lineup? I mean, with those three guys missing, kind of made sense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I never really want to see Bentancur in a lineup again after this season. But I mean, with all things given, I mean, it was a lineup that probably should have been able to beat pretty much any team in Serie A.
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately just comes down to the guys getting the job done and win the battle. And even when we get into tactics, positioning, all this stuff, it kind of goes out the window in derbies, you know?
Yeah.
You just gotta fight.
It's about the fight, yeah.
You just gotta fight. And that's what we want to see. So we'll quickly touch on the key points of the match before we get into all the fun stuff, as they say. Starts very positive from Juventus. A minute and a half in, and you got Morata clean through on further replay there and further look at it. He kind of flubs the shot. Didn't really chip over Sirigu there. But again, promising. 3 minutes in, Ronaldo getting to an aerial ball, laying it down for Chiesa, who's in a really good spot in the volley. He gets it all wrong, skies it. But again, promising start. Then all of a sudden, 5th minute, Mandragora comes in a trailing run, left completely unmarked, which is a frustration of mine that I've had for a while now with this team, is this collapse defending, where you just have players marking space and zones. Man up. Just man up, line up with the guy directly across from you and just shut them down. There's no reason. And when you look at this replay, there's literally 5 Juve players marking nobody. Marking absolutely nobody. Torino wins the ball on the side. Gets through 2 players, by the way. Gets through. And that's all he gets through, 2 Juve players. Even take the guy down and just take the professional foul. We do take him down, but we just stop once he hits the ground. The players just literally stopped and watched. And I'm like, guys, this is a fucking derby. Like, fight. So he gets up and then is able to find Mandragora, who, again, is sitting there, just sitting there. Frustrating. Luckily, the shot goes wide. 7th minute, 50-50 ball after an absolutely brutal error from Sandro to lose the ball to Rincon. Easily dispossessed, which is just absolutely pathetic. 50-50 Delict and Belotti. And honestly, that's very, very fortunate, in my opinion, for Juve.
Yeah.
To come through that one unscathed with a PK. Definitely see those ones called. And I think we got lucky on that one. I know that Belotti had the chance to shoot, took a swipe and missed, and maybe that's what saved it from not being called in their minds. But you could easily see that one called. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a 50-50 situation. You know, it depended what way the referee, what way he kind of initially saw it. You know what I mean? If he saw that and initially he thought, okay, this could be a penalty, and he goes and looks at it, then he's probably going to confirm it. But if I think for some reason he was on our side there. Now, saying that, it was a bit rash from Delict, but he had no choice. He had to get in there. Otherwise, it was going to be a free shot on goal. So, yeah.
Yeah. Trevor?
Yeah, no, I think the same thing. I think if he initially thought that was a penalty or, that might have been a penalty, he probably would have gone back and looked at it and said, yeah, that's a penalty. Yeah. I was very surprised to see VAR go our way. If they, when they talked about it through the mics, I was pretty surprised to see that go our way. But I mean, at the end of the day, Delit was doing a last defense challenge, and I mean, he won it or he didn't win it, doesn't matter. He got the ball out.
Yeah, it all literally comes down to such a cheaply dispossessed ball from Sandro.
Yes,
that should have never amounted to that, right? And then you're scrambling, and like Colin and like you said, Trevor, you got Belotti with a free chance and goal from in almost next to the spot. You got to make that last ditch, right? And we got some comments coming in here. Bob coming in. Good morning. Happy Easter and thanks for the theory. Yes, of course. Happy Easter to everybody. Thanks to everybody who's joined us right off the bat. And this is going to be a therapy session. And for those that are listening to the pod on audio only, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel because there's a lot of extras, the pre-match day lives, and we're going to have a lot of other fun stuff coming up. So, but Bob, definitely going to get some things out of the way here on this one. We'll carry on with some key points from the first half. 13th minute, Chiesa give and go with Morata, and he finishes her off. And again, this kid is the one
he's unbelievable.
He's the driving force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he is. What does that say about this club when it's a 23-year-old that's his first season at the club? That's kind of, for me, where we have gut check time on our other players. It's a bit of a gut check, and it's a bit of an eye opener. I think for Juventini, when you want to look at this club and you want to look at the results that are coming, that's kind of an indicator. It's kind of a strong indicator. So you go from one contrast to the opposite. You go from a vet, guy who's been around forever, Sandro, who absolutely looks lackadaisical, giving you opportunities for the opponent in your own end. Then you got a 23-year-old first year at the club who's given everything he has for every second he's on the pitch and is your driving force. Our spine is not good enough.
I think I saw someone earlier talk about it on Twitter yesterday, and they were like, it's just the mentality of the older players in this club has just started to dwindle. Like, what is this mentality of we'll be better next time? Today, I think we played good, but it wasn't good enough. Like, there's no in between. So people like Chiesa, who's also maybe trying to fight a little bit for his name to be put in the squad permanently. Fair, he's fighting for it, but then again, he's in his first year and he doesn't have this mentality of we'll get him next time because this one wasn't so good. It's either this time or it's nothing. So I'll give it my all or nothing.
Yeah. I think it was I wrote about it yesterday, but described his goal as he created it for himself. I think it was fairly indicative. He drove in off the wing. He plays he plays a pass to Morata, and it kind of I won't call it a 1-2 because it kind of bounced off Morata more than anything else. He drives in, collects the ball that's not in an ideal situation, and nutmegs the goalkeeper in the best way he can. Not the best finish in the world, but it gets the job done purely because of his energy, his drive, his mentality, and he's the blueprint. We need more of Chiesa. Like it's we need to find out whatever whatever he's eating and drinking and feed it to the rest of the guys.
It's just that's the level you want and expect from all the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like it's just to see one consistently be there, and then this'll kind of be one of the points when we start getting into where the line begins and ends from coaching and player performances. And motivation and player performances. We'll kind of get into that after here. So 13th minute, Chiesa again, the catalyst, getting us up 1-0. After that, and even up until this point, it was a pretty wide open match. A lot of back and forth. After this goal, Torino, they dial it up. They crank it up a bit, and Juve started to struggle. And credit to Torino, they had a plan. They fought. They were fighting. We didn't match that level across the board. Again, tactics, all this. It's a derby. Line up with the guys across from you. Get ready to get stuck in. And sadly, for a derby, I did not think enough of our guys were up to the task. And I saw guys laying off of challenges, and just doing the opposite of what you should do in a derby, which is not get stuck in. So 21st minute, Sandro's best contribution, a massive block in our area from a rip there from Torino. 26th minute, no foul on Quadrado, regardless of no foul there. Trailing run again. And this has been something consistent with the club all season. The trailing runners, because we were just so quick to get back. And that's it. We just collapse in our box, and that's it. Trailing run. Mandragora rips it. What awful rebound control from Szczesny.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Absolutely woeful rebound control. Sandro, he takes a terrible route, but at that point, he was never going to get to it. His only shot would have been to try and budge the guy off and maybe not get a call or something. He was in no man's land. But again, you look at this and you have guys standing around. Again, you have 4 guys marking space. And that guy Mandragora had all the time in the world. If he wanted to take a touch and look at it, dial one up, he could have done that. The distance was too far to cover for Danilo. Bentancur's sitting there watching. At some point, if you're a defender too and you see your midfielders there, make the call. Push them forward. There's no sense in them being back there. There was 2 opponents in the area for Torino. We had 5 guys in there.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. It's absolutely unnecessary. But Szczesny's got to be better on that, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised that he even gave that up. Honestly, he doesn't really make many mistakes. We see, I think it's a mistake last year against Sassuolo, and that was pretty much the last mistake I can remember the guy making. And it's uncharacteristic of him. Maybe it's from the international break. Maybe the entire squad's mentality is just in the bin. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's shocking stuff, and you would expect better from Szczesny, right?
Oh,
Colin?
Definitely. That's fair enough. Like you made a good point. The midfielders didn't track quite well, and when the ball rebounded back out, I think from from Danilo, you would have expected there to be a couple of guys waiting, rather than just running aimlessly. But still, that's 100% on Chesney. He should have parried that out to the side, no doubt. It's I can't really excuse him.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. It's just for the standards required for this club. Again, it's these are the kind of errors that have been killing us this season. And it's from the guys that shouldn't be making them. That's the problem. That's the problem. And Anthony coming in, we actually talked about this on the Match Day Live. I said it. I said for a while now, these matches before and after international breaks have been a nightmare.
That's true.
They have been a nightmare. And it just, this was one of them. You could quickly see it unfolding. And we go into halftime. My thought at halftime was Kulusevski was absolutely invisible, but you have about half your starting 11 not up to the task. The problem is your options aren't that much better either. So what do you do? For me, Kulusevski was rendered almost useless, and I would have made a switch there just because the other guys are struggling or whatnot, but he literally was not involved. Make a change. That was my only change I was calling for at halftime. What did you guys think at half?
You go, Trev.
I mean, I thought it was actually insane when I've seen that it's halftime and it's 1-1, and I've just looked back at the mentality, and I'm just looking back at the game, and I'm like, nothing happened there. There was nothing. In the first 5 minutes, I'll say we had a fair amount of chances, and it looked like we were going to be on the front foot for pretty much the rest of the game. And then it just went downhill like Juventus usually does. And it was kind of insane. On the Kulusevski talk, I mean, I like the guy, especially because of what a high price tag we paid for him. I want him to work out. I think he has the potential to do it. I don't know if he's playing out of position. I mean, I know he's technically on his right position on that right, but maybe we're not playing him correctly with the opposing players, on his sides. I'm not sure. I don't know why he's been so poor as of lately, and I mean, pretty much in this entire season, except the first maybe couple games, he's been horrible, and he's essentially playing for the other team. He's given pretty much two goals away in the last 2 or 3 games or whatever you'd count it as. So I mean, I don't know what's happened to Kulusevski. I mean, I want the guy to work out, but I mean, what is it, 44 million? I mean, you can't just let that go. And nobody's going to pay over 44 million, so we have to count it as a loss. Maybe you want to see it in the next season if he can somehow get up and get going. But I mean, with wingers like Chiesa and then with wingers like Bernardeschi and Kulusevski on the other side, I mean, we're not going to be happy ever, pretty much, unless we get another Chiesa.
Yeah. Weird with Kulusevski, I think, but we've seen it. We've seen it this season. This is where my frustrations with Pirlo kind of land too. Is Kulusevski, when he's been put outside there, has struggled this season.
Yeah,
he struggled at second striker, which he is not a second striker.
No,
he might make it work if Morata was the guy opposite of him, but the Ronaldo Kulusevski thing wasn't working. But he had no options. He had no Dybala available. Morata was out. Like, what do? You can go Chiesa and Ronaldo, sure, but Chiesa's work rate, I understand why you'd want him on that side to cover for Ronaldo being up top there. So he's always got this predicament that he's trying to deal with, right? And it's tough. It's tough. But for me in this one, you got to get Kulu out of there. But again, now we get into who would you put on? Again, these options. Bernardeschi probably would have been the one at that position, right? You could have made the argument that you moved Danilo over to right back, push Cuadrado up onto that right mid location, and he could push forward. But then who do you put in the middle? You just ban 2 of your midfielders. And whether that's right or wrong, regardless, those two are out. Rabiot could have come in, and then what's the problem? Everybody knows how they feel about Rabiot Bentancur pairing.
Doesn't work.
It's tough. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Almost,
Yeah.
It's a tough one. That was a tough one. I started running through these scenarios in my head, and I'm like, shit, I don't know if I play Rabiot and Bentancur together in the rest of this one when Torino was coming on. I don't know if that's the play. The Cuadrado Danilo thing made perfect sense on the right, but shit, that midfield, I don't know. The other thing that was frustrating about Pirlo in that one is that we were losing the battles in the midfield, and maybe you could have made the argument to just slam the three in the middle and get Rabiot out there and make it Danilo, Bentancur, Rabiot, right? And just push one guy up and go to that 4-3-3. You could have made that argument.
I actually think that's probably going to be Kulu's best position eventually is the right or left wing forward in a trident. I think, even before the start of the season, I was hoping Pirlo would use that shape, and he hasn't really. So I hope we go to it eventually, that's kind of another discussion. But you asked about who could you put out there. I mean, I gave Kulusevski a 3.5 out of 10 yesterday, and I stand by it 100%.
Yeah.
And we had a young kid called Felix Correa on the bench, and if anyone wants to tell me he could have done a worse job than Kulusevski, even in his debut for the first team, I'd love to hear the argument. But obviously a tough game. But yeah, I agree with you, Al. He should have been gotten out of there as quick as possible. He was absent.
Yeah, and part of the frustration with Pirlo too is that he probably didn't go with Correa because he was thinking about the defensive aspect of that role in his setup. But
probably
the one time when we saw his, arguably our best was against Lazio in that hybrid 4-2-3-1 setup, but it truly did almost play with those three middle guys in the center. He should have just went with, I don't know, we were losing the battle in the mid for sure. Anthony comes in. You could see them with zero energy coming out of the locker room for the second half. It hit you like a punch right to the mouth watching these guys come out. You could almost I don't remember seeing a Juventus so mentally fragile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so mentally weak. You're looking at these guys, this body language coming out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not giving me hope.
No. None of them. They're not playing for the coach right now. They're not playing like a team that realizes the situation they're in. Like, the reality of it is there's a good few of those guys are going to be shipped on, okay? Now, you can make the argument that they know this already, and maybe that's leading into their attitude on the field. But they should still be fighting. Why should they still be fighting, even if they're leaving? Because they're not going to make a step up after Juventus.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at guys like Rabiot who are going to go to mid-table teams in England, or possibly back to France or somewhere like that. They're not going to Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Man City, or someone of that ilk. You should be fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going back what you were saying earlier, Colin, with Felix Correa. It just angers me so much that Pirlo doesn't play, and really none of our coaches have ever played youngsters. And I mean young youngsters, like just called up, first time. Let him play. I guarantee you he'll be better than Kulusevski. I guarantee you he'll be better than, on this day, Morata as well. I mean, put Fagioli in the midfield, take out Bentancur, take out Rabiot, whoever's there. I mean, I promise you they will do a better job. And if they don't, do a great job, they're still doing a better job because of just how poor the other players are. I think it's insane. And they also, like, people like Kulusevski and Bentancur need to realize that they are disposable. They will get sent out if they're not, doing their job. So it's like we need to kind of make sure that they understand. Listen, we have Fagioli in the midfield. Bentancur, you're out if he does anything remotely better than you, which is not too hard to do.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's a tough one because while I agree with you on some of that, I think it's hard because of the pressure. The pressure that's mounted on him and whatnot. Again, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment. And honestly, the guys that he banked on, we talked about it at the lineup. That's enough. That's enough to beat Torino. They were 17th in the table. They still are. They're 17th in the table.
Mm-hmm.
If we're calling for these youngsters to come in and get that job done, again, for me, that highlights bigger problems.
Mm-hmm.
Huge problems.
With the guys that we do have. If those guys can't line up across from Torino, get themselves motivated, and beat those guys, that's a fucking problem if we're looking at guys from our U23 team to come up and beat a side battling for relegation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a major issue. That's what I'm trying to get at while everybody's on the Pirlo thing. I totally understand, and we will touch on that, but there's bigger issues. Max saying that players were laughing before the start of the second half, if you noticed that.
I actually did.
Yeah, I noticed that. And I noticed one particular incident actually. Alexandro, no, this was in the second half. He gets the ball at left back and he kind of fakes to clear it, and then he plays it off one of the Torino players and it goes out. And then he starts laughing with him and patting him on the back, and it's like, oh, it's a big joke. Or like, what the fuck, man? You are 2-1 down. What the hell are you doing? Having a joke on the field with the Torino player. Get your head straight,
Let's get to that, because that's 30 seconds into the second half. Kulishevsky with almost a carbon copy of what happened against Lazio when he gave it up to Correa, coughs it up, and Sanabria takes it the rest of the way. And honestly, there's Szczesny again. That's a joke of a goal to allow for a keeper that's supposed to be of Szczesny's caliber. Terrible. Mm-hmm. Terrible goal. Kulishevsky again, there's so many other possibilities of what he could have done. And it's just, I have no words when you see mistakes like that.
Yeah.
And there you are with 2 goals in this. And again, Pirlo out, sure, I understand. But these are 2 fucking goals that our guys need to be better on.
Yeah.
And this is an ongoing story.
Oh, it's a litany. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's the same, it's just same shit, different date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where we create our own demise is how I worded it on my wrap up of this one.
Yeah.
Again, the battles become mentality that comes through from the coach or whatnot. And for me, when it's flat out basic errors and not just young guys making them, but your vets, there's big problems. You can coach a guy, you can motivate him, you can do whatever. At the end of the day, these guys need to be smarter. They have to be smarter. You cannot walk into a player's mind and control him and what he does. It just has to be better.
I saw the camera go to one of the Juve coaches on the bench right after the Kulusevski incident. Now, I couldn't tell if he was thinking about Kulu or Szczesny, and I don't know who he was because he had a mask on, but he had both hands on his face, just his head in his hands. He's just, my God, what, you work all week and they do shit like that. How, what do you do?
It's crazy. Max says he told us before earlier, we have the best assist men for the opponent.
They're awesome in that respect.
Pretty much. We've got Eric said, if Tech would have accidentally tripped over a single blade of grass and fell forward with both hands behind his back, he had a better chance of blocking the second goal with his forehead. Yeah, like
absolutely.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
It's absolutely shocking. We go through the second half, guys. We'll just quickly get into this because I know I could see on the chat where everybody wants to head with this, and we'll get there. 50th minute after we go down 2-1, Chiesa starts to line one up from distance, has a good rip, gets deflected, ends up going just wide. Again, he's a catalyst. 52nd minute, CR7 with a header that gets stopped by Sirigu. 67th minute, you see some frustration. Quadrado, a veteran, got to be smarter. Gets dispossessed for his own, ignorance, I guess you would say. Okay, being lackadaisical, and then goes in there with a challenge which was absolutely reckless.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you leave both feet off the pitch and you're jumping into those challenges, you open yourself up. And he's just got to be smart. Again, these are the vets. Mm-hmm. These are the vets on this team. Frustrating moment to see that happen, Luckily, it's a yellow. We're okay. 69th minute, CR7 again on a header. No luck. 78th minute, we get one. Looks offside to the naked eye on CR7. They go to VAR. They call it a goal, rightfully so. He did do a good job on that one and gets the goal. Outside of that, 82nd minute, Bentancur gets a nice rip with space. And again, when our mids have the lane, got to start taking those shots. He does. Very, very unlucky because Sirigu does very well to get just enough to get that.
Brilliant save.
To know.
Yeah.
And we might be having a completely different discussion if some of these chances, those ones early on in this match, even this go a different way, but that's the way it's been falling for us. And then it honestly finishes off with a bit of a push from Torino on 89th. Sanabria almost gets his hat-trick goal, for God's sakes. Luckily, it doesn't. It ends in a 2-2 draw. May as well have been a loss. That's what it felt like, And now we get into all these things. For me, it was just a lot of the same. Mm-hmm. Chances created. Our conversion is poor. But in this one, you will always struggle no matter who you play in Serie A when you have 5 of your starting 11 not up to the task.
Mm-hmm.
I counted 5. That was my really thought on this match. Like I was like, you're always going to struggle with 5 guys off the task. Do you guys? How are you guys feeling after this one? Besides, obviously, absolutely pissed off or whatnot. But would you agree that half our starting lineup wasn't up to the task?
Yeah, I thought. I'd be interested to know who you chose, but I
can let you know for sure.
Easy.
So, Kulishevsky, non-existent, other than one cross. CR7, if I'm being serious, first half was abysmal.
Mm-hmm.
Second half, we turned it on, but still not near the level required. Morata, I thought struggled. He struggled big time. People were trying to pass that off as an assist. That's a very generous assist because Chiesa had a fuckload left to do. So I'd say that's a very generous assist. So those 3 for sure. Danilo struggled in this one. Mm-hmm. Our midfield was not up to where it should have been. I thought Danilo struggled. Sandro was bad.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible.
Sandro was bad, and Szczesny was laughable when we needed him most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I'm glad you said Ronaldo there.
I am as well.
Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't there in the first half. You never saw him. And while he did have a few chances in the second half, he just wasn't sharp. He was under pressure for a few. There was one header that was pretty much free, and Sirigu just easily caught it. But he had a few chances besides his goal, and if his finishing was better, he could have done something for us, But I mean, Cuadrado was pretty bad for me as well. We didn't see much of the positive side that he brings, and the negative side was very much outweighing his performance yesterday as well. The only guys that I was really, indifferent about, I couldn't criticize him a whole lot. I know a few people did. Was Danilo and actually Bentancur. For me, because I had no expectation that they were going to be creative at all. I knew that whenever the ball is going to come to them, even if they look for a forward pass, they're not going to do it. They're just going to pass it sideways, laterally, and leave it up to the wide players because maybe that's their plan, or maybe that's the plan because they're just not capable. Do you know what I mean? But so I had very little expectation of the midfield. But everybody else, I mean, Chiellini had a solid game. I gave him a 6. De Ligt had a solid game. A couple of dodgy challenges. Obviously, the hand in the face for the free kick on Belotti, but and potentially the penalty kick. But he did a job in Belotti. Do you know what I mean? He actually singled him out and he gave him some treatment. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of a pity more of the Juve players didn't try and do that, because I saw Rincon doing it for Torino. Now he probably could have got sent off. He probably should have got 2 yellow cards.
Oh yeah, and this is the thing is when we get into this with these players and them not being up to the task. I talked about it earlier. The fight wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like the fight wasn't there that to match a derby. When we start talking about half your lineup struggling, it's always going to be hard. When you're chasing a goal, Ronaldo did tie it in the 78th, 12 minutes. Maybe that's when you make, Correa enter the pitch and just push him up forward. Maybe that's when you try something like that. So Pirlo, you could criticize, like, where's the changes? The subs he did make, Ramsey come in and honestly look like garbage to me, to be honest. And then he entered Bernardeschi, and it really sums up this team for me, what we saw. Fast break opportunity late in the match, and Morata puts it, to the corner flag, for fuck's sakes, with 5 of us running at 3 defenders who were scrambling. And that's just, again, this is a guy that is, you could consider him a veteran player. He's been around long enough. That can't happen. You've got to be dialed in. The amount of focus and just the execution. It's execution. Bernardeschi, frustrating, but sums it up in a derby when he gets the ball in the area there and takes that dive.
I couldn't believe that. I really couldn't.
You have acres of space in front of you. If that was Chiesa, what would happen. What
just
would
keep
happen.
going. Yeah.
If you're going to go down, you better be damn sure there's contact. But otherwise, you fight.
Yeah.
You just fight. And, man, when the guys go down early or take that, it's frustrating. But honestly, everybody needs to look themselves in the mirror after this one. Pirlo for sure. All the players, though. That is a good enough side to beat a 17th table side. And if it isn't, we have major issues.
Yeah.
We have problems. AJ asked a question earlier on in this feed, and I was going to get to it, and it says, because everybody's belief is it's mentality, it's motivation, it's focus, that all comes from your coaching. And AJ asked, do you think it's possible to change a player's mentality without changing the coach? And this is the thing for me. Mentality, I see a team that lacks confidence and is mentally weak and fragile.
Mhm.
Usually, if you're lacking confidence, it comes from a couple of things. But one would be lack of belief in what you're doing, system and stuff like that. So maybe you chalk that one up to Pirlo. What I also see, though, above all this, is at what point, and this is my question to everybody, at what point do we actually just say the guys aren't up to it? The roster we have is just not up to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the reason I ask this is because we go through a season last season where you go into matches sometimes waiting for your first attempt in the 70th minute. Okay?
Yeah.
You're lower than where you should be in the rankings for big chances created. Your conversion rate isn't even good. You're getting about 2 goals a game, which is fine if you weren't so leaky at the back.
Yeah.
So you're there. Fast forward to this season. We are the number 1 squad in Serie A for big chances created. We are the number 1 side in Serie A for big chances missed. Our conversion rate is worse because we're still averaging 2 goals per game, despite the fact that we've massively increased how many big chances we create. At what point does player performances start to kind of play into that? Also take a look and consider we have minused out goals from the midfield. We have minused out luxury goals of free kicks. We have taken that away from ourselves.
Mhm.
You factor all this in. You want to look at goals against? We are still the lowest goals against in Serie A. However, look at how we allow the goals from our own errors. You put all this together, at what point, just like any business, okay, any job that you work at, do they continuously create a carousel of getting rid of managers, or do they look at team performances, whether it be sales, whether it be whatever the job is?
Yeah.
We have to be honest with ourselves there. Look, I've said, you want to get rid of Pirlo? Sure, I get it. You want to ignite some type of stimulus in this team to get top 4, to keep top 4.
Mhm.
I get it. But these numbers don't lie. Like we literally like, and this is the part that I struggle with, is that last season it was a shit show to watch. You're not creating opportunities, and you don't have this crazy high conversion rate. And how would you when you're barely creating them?
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, now what you wanted to create more chances. We should be getting these guys more opportunities. Ronaldo should be getting more opportunities. We're getting them, guys.
Yeah.
We're just not fucking finishing them.
Yeah.
I just want to come back to AJ's question, just to put it very simply. I mean, do I believe you can change the player's mentality without changing the coach? Absolutely. Change the players. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You change the players.
Yeah.
Obviously, the coach is involved. But when the coach hasn't had a chance to actually build a squad, he's been handed, and I know he's in the first Juve coach to be handed this dysfunctional squad.
Mhm.
And it is, let's call it that, a squad that's lost its spine. And, you're talking about mentality. That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Guys on the field with proper bottle. Do you know what I mean? Guys who can take a pressure situation and know what to do. Chiellini, an example. Obviously, Pirlo when he was there, so many guys we had, like, they're all gone. The squad needs to be regenerated. You can't take young, like, not all young kids. Like, I mean, Chiesa he's exceptional. Do you know what I mean? But you can't take just average players and say, give them a lovely PowerPoint presentation or give them a great team talk, and all of a sudden, boom, They've got mentality. These guys have to have it kind of internally themselves. They need to be able to motivate themselves, and not even motivate, but just have the self-confidence, the ruthlessness, the work ethic, all of this stuff. Like a coach can't give you that. Like, do you know what I mean? He can't just come along and say, look, watch that DVD over there, or watch that YouTube, or watch this guy on TV, and all of a sudden, boom, the guy's got it all. It just doesn't work like that. You have to find the right players to do it. You have to find proper players, and Pirlo hasn't had a chance yet. But does that mean the coach is regardless of the results, the coach is going to stay? I don't think so. I think if it continues like this, he's going to get sacked, and the blame will be completely on the players, because they're not fighting for him. You need to fight. Like, they need to fight for themselves and the coach and the club, and they're not doing it. And it's I don't know. Like, you can let the whole structure of the club just fall down like a house of cards if you want, and still keep that squad and see how it works. But I really don't. I don't see that squad improving. On its own. Like, it's they're not capable. I mean, having Bentancur, Rabiot in midfield, having young Kulusevski, who's he was so bad yesterday. Like, I mean, how do you see that improving? Sorry,
the reality of the situation is you won't change all the players.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you won't.
And this is the sad thing. So the reason I bring up how I feel about their personal performances and the fact that we're the number one. I don't know if many even TD knew that we're the number one team in terms of big chances created.
I actually second half thought it was a mistake on your part. I was like, no way, until you explained the second stat following with it.
We're the biggest. Yeah, we have the most big chances created. Higher than Inter, who has scored 12 or something more goals than us or whatnot. But we have the most big chance misses. And for me, like, this is the thing. There's a separation between where's your tactics and your player positioning at fault, and where is it just on the players? Because this is the thing, and this is how I look at it. If there are matches where we've gotten it all wrong, and Pirlo has gotten it all wrong, but there's only been a few of those.
Yeah.
The majority of our matches, we control play. We own possession. We get a lot of chances. Guys aren't clinical enough.
I think one interesting thing that I think a lot of people say is we're Juventus. They play up against prime Barcelona. Like, we make them play like prime Barcelona, like prime whatever. And people start saying things like, because I know we always play Torino and Sirigu always turns up. He is a good goalkeeper against us. I don't know if he's good against other teams, bottom table teams, whatever it is. But I think we have to get that mentality out of our head as well, that this team is playing good against Juventus because we're Juventus, and it's not our own doing. Like, we put the blame on, or we put the blame on the other team and saying, well, they're playing better. How are we supposed to beat them? We're still meant to beat them, even if they're playing like prime Barcelona. We're still meant to put up a fight at the very least.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting what you say about Pirlo not being able to instill the mentality on the players. It's them of their own doing. And I agree. At the end of the day, like, these players have to be willing to get out there and go. I think ever since the 2016 or maybe 2017, 2018 season, incidentally, where Ronaldo came in, not necessarily his fault, but his doing. But I think ever since then, the mentality has gone down since then, because it's just been on a slow downward spiral where we think we're winning no matter what we do, especially last season where we barely even tried with Sarri and we still won. I think it's just insane to look at it because everybody else, in no words better, they suck. And now this year they don't suck and they're losing. So,
and just going back to my thought there, like, when tactics, positioning, all that become an issue for me, is when you are failing to generate anything, and the other team's basically just taking it to you and whatnot. That doesn't really happen to Juventus this season.
Mhm.
There's been a handful of matches where that's probably happened.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, that's where I see the separation from tactics and all this and just execution. And
execution.
having that heart is because if we were going into these matches, like this Torino one, for fuck's sakes, we had 71% possession. We had 22 attempts, with 8 of them being on target. And the one goal that does go in, it's like Chiesa makes an incredible, move and finish. And then the other one, Ronaldo's just on the money spot. But Ronaldo had a couple open headers, that he didn't finish. Morata had one he put right at Zirgu, an open header. It's tough. Again, you have fast break opportunities that these guys just can't make the right decisions. And again, we have created an issue at Juventus with our roster in terms of taking away the competition for starting spots.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Things are way too cushy for these players. They have life made. That's why nobody wants to fucking leave. Why would you? Holy shit. They're just going to keep sacking managers while I shit the bed. Cool. And I'll just collect my 7 or 8 mil. Oh, sign me up. This is Club Med.
Yeah.
Not fucking Juventus. It can't be that way. It just can't be that way. And you take away this competition and there's no fight. And this goes back to, like, I remember Emre Can having a fucking clause that promised him Champions League football. Fuck, buddy, earn it.
Mm.
These are some of the issues, right? And it all piles up. And you can go back. You can go farther back. And you can see where we started again to create our own demise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The streak wasn't going to last forever.
No.
And the streak, I'm fine when it comes to it. I appreciate what I've just witnessed and know that I probably will never see it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's very, very important that everyone keeps the perspective. Mm-hmm. And, like, at what point, and this is all I'm asking everybody, at what point do you draw that line of separation and put more on the players? Put more on the board. Let's say, hey, with €1 billion won in Champions League over the past decade, we don't have a midfielder confident enough to take a fucking rip from 25 yards out.
Mm-hmm.
Pathetic.
Absolutely. We have a 23-year-old that's the only one that understands what it's like to be at Juventus.
Yeah.
These are problems. These are big problems. And they have trickle-down effects. And for me, the biggest issue is this team has lacked a plan from the top. And my fear at the start of the season when Pirlo was hired, I will support any manager. They could fire him today. I will support the next guy that comes in.
Oh, yeah.
My allegiance is tied. I will never go anywhere, and I'll support whoever they go. I have no ties to Pirlo. I really, it's no skin on my ass if he
fired or not.
But my fear is all these issues have piled up, and we don't get to the root.
Yeah.
And I fear that COVID will prevent this team from doing what they really need to do. You're not going to change all of the players.
No.
Change a coach, bring another coach in. My fear is we're already creating a shit ton of chances. We're already allowing the league's lowest amount of goals.
Mm-hmm.
But we're why?
I don't think you need to change all the players. I think we're kind of set at centre back. I think as in like we're not 100% there, but we've got one of the best centre backs in the world. We've got Demiral then as well, who's needs a good bit of work, but he's he's definitely not without his talent. And obviously we've talked about midfield. So I mean, we need two fullbacks. We need a couple midfielders as well, at least. But that's like we're talking about the spine of the team here. Like we're talking about the engine room. We're talking about midfield. That's like if you're talking about mentality, you're talking about attitude, fight. That's where all that stuff counts. Do you know what I mean?
I just want to. I'll ask a question to everybody join us live, and even you guys. Like, where does our fight come from? Who are our fighters? Because yesterday, who were our fighters? I saw 2, maybe 3.
For me, you have to do it. The players have to do it themselves. I mean, we're all speaking about where do you draw the line, things like that. At the end of the day, I think Pirlo, although I agree with you. I don't have any ties to him. If he goes, he goes. If he stays, he stays. I don't know whether it's a good idea or not. I'm not too sure. If Juventus want to almost admit that they were wrong of hiring him, I don't know if they'll refrain from firing him because of that reason. But I think you have to draw the line more towards the player's side. I think Pirlo is doing the best possible job he can be doing right now. And that may be a little questionable, but I think he's doing one of the best jobs that he could possibly do. But at the end of the day, his players aren't the ones who are turning up. He's, of course, could be doing some better tactics, maybe making a sub earlier than he should be, but that comes with experience. And although he has some experienced guys on his, I think he has Tudor on his, on his side and everything, they should be telling him stuff like this. But at the end of the day, you have to put it more towards the players. And Colin, what you're saying with, 2 fullbacks, a couple of midfielders, maybe a number 9. I think changing in a couple of players in and out, I think that will be the thing that can change them, along with just an overall haul of guys. Listen, you need to play to win. We played the Torino Derby and nothing happened. The entire time it was like when they walked into the second half, I almost expected them to let in a goal. We've done it almost every single game since I don't even know, a month now. It's almost like you expect when they get the ball in the first minute of the second half, you just expect it to go in. When Porto played, I mean, it was ridiculous. The first, 30 seconds, 45 seconds in both of the halves was an immediate goal immediately. It's the players, I think, is more towards blame. I don't think Pirlo can take that much blame. I mean, although he's a new coach, and I think we talked about it before the podcast started, but whether he should have accepted the call or not, you're not gonna, as a coach who's getting a call for that, you're never not gonna accept that call. That's ridiculous to say that he shouldn't have accepted that. So for me, I think you have to line that towards the players. I mean,
the thing is like, again, it's the stupid turnovers. It's your keeper not making a routine save. Things that should be easy. It's like fucking Porto. People want to put us on the hook for Porto. Okay. Yeah. 3 of those 4 goals were the same fuck-ups by players.
And Pirlo can't change that. That's the thing. He can't all of a sudden tell Szczesny or Kulusevski or Bentancur, who seem like the guys who like to do it, don't make a mistake. What are they going to do? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And they're going to make a mistake.
Sorry, Trevor. Sorry.
You're good.
In terms of coaching, because everybody's like, well, no, he's not the rah guy. There's a ton of coaches that aren't the rah type that get the job done, that have their players focused. That I don't believe it's one or the other. You can be whatever style coach you want to be. The problem is, in this scenario, again, you're not going to be able to do this mass reset on all these players. He will be the guy that goes. It will be Pirlo.
Yeah, absolutely.
My fear, what I'm trying to explain, is that next coach comes in, we generate just as many chances as we are now. Do we magically start finishing these? I don't know. I don't know if we do. So the point that I make at times is, what is the stimulus trying to provide? Because the guys are controlling matches. They're generating all these chances. And we've got a decent balance. The only time we're allowing goals is our own fuck-ups. So I go,
Yeah.
What's the stimulus trying to bring in? Even more chances? Like, at some point, sooner or later, these guys just have to... Allegri said it best in this interview 2 weeks ago. You could do whatever the fuck you want. You need the guys to put the ball in the net.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. You could prepare as much as you want. You need to put the ball in the back of the net. Chiellini, after the match, you could almost copy and paste his interviews after every single match. We don't understand the moments of the match. That is on players. That is
100%.
not on a coach to not understand the moments you are in while you are living them on the pitch. Kulishevsky needs to live that moment. He needs to know that moment.
Yeah.
He needs to be aware of that danger. He literally made that mistake 3 fucking weeks ago. Did the exact same thing. You want to get on Pirlo, okay, what are your options there? Bernardeschi. If Bernardeschi comes in, gives us much of the same of what we've seen, then he gets fucking roasted again. You pull in Correa, the youngster maybe doesn't get it done in the Derby. Maybe it's a little much, a lot of pressure. All of a sudden, he gets shit on too.
Yeah.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario when your players simply aren't executing.
Yeah, they're not good enough. You know, they're just not good enough. You can't, like, there's some of those guys, like you could say Kulusevski, you know, he's got great potential. He could be a fantastic player. He could just as equally not. You know, he could be sent on loan next year to try and rediscover form or try and get himself back together, and that may not work out for him, or it may, and Juve may decide, okay, we'll take 20 or 30 million from him and you can have him, because you never know when a guy steps up if he's going to have the mentality to actually do it at a big club when there's pressure on every single game, not just 1 or 2 games a season, every single game, you know. And like, we don't know. You could say he's very talented, you know. He is, you know, but you just can't make those mistakes. And if you do, like, you need to be able to bounce back from them. You know, we've just seen this period of malaise from him for the last couple of months, and it's just not been, you know, it's just not good enough.
I'm going to address, so you're telling me our players aren't good enough to beat Benevento at home, this comment coming in from RB Comps. And RB Comps, I guess maybe I am. If versus Benevento, we had 73% possession, 21 attempts, 7 going on goal, and we could not muster a goal. Mm-hmm. Benevento had 1 attempt on target. We lost that 1-0. I'm sorry, but what do you want your coach to do? You want your coach to put your players in a position where they're getting opportunities to score. Your forwards are getting opportunities to score. You know? And the goal that was allowed, was that Pirlo's error as well? Because that was Arthur trying to go across the back.
You can't blame Pirlo for that. I mean, people are going to blame Pirlo as much as they want because he's an easy route to go. But you can't blame Pirlo for losing 1-0 to Benevento at home, who's just been promoted. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the fact that you're going to try to place Arthur's mistake on Pirlo's tactics, like that, those two things just don't coincide. You can't blame him for that.
And RB Cops come in and say, not blaming it all on Pirlo. I get it. And he's not free of 0 blame.
No, absolutely.
Pirlo has blame, which to me, the most of it is in-game management. His in-game management is nowhere near that of an experienced manager's. Mm-hmm. And there's no way to gain that. There's no way to gain that other than live through it. Allegri put it best. There is no book you can read that gives you that.
Yeah.
That teaches, like, you live through it. The problem is that he was brought in to be our manager and our expectations stayed here.
Yeah.
To me, that makes zero sense.
We want Pep Guardiola.
The second Pirlo was hired, the first thing that ran through my head is this is a way for them to wipe out these expectations that, in my mind, the board knows they cannot reach. And it was almost a reset for them because, hey, here's our fall guy for our fucking bad business.
I remember.
Hey, we got a new manager. The problem is, too, you guys want all these changes. There's no money. There's no money. They had no money to get an experienced guy. So they took a shot with Pirlo. But to say that the expectations should have stayed the same is just it's wrong. It's wrong. I adjusted my expectations. And if you hear these guys talking about Pirlo, Allegri included, said all in all, he's done well. I mean, all the situations that's going on. And again, if you look at these games and you break them down, our forwards are getting opportunities to score. It's not going in the net. We have a lack of traits, to put it easiest, in the midfield. Okay. And defensively, we're well balanced and we allow a low number of goals. It's just all our own fuck ups. A lot of them.
You look back at last season and you say there's a problem with the coach. Personally, I would look back at last season with Sadi and I would say there was a problem with the coach.
Yeah.
We weren't doing enough, making enough chances, whatever it was.
Exactly. It was a shit show.
But this season, you look at it and you say, we're making the chances. We have the possession. We're doing stupid errors. And that's not Pirlo's doing. It's not about positioning. When Kulusevski makes a mistake like yesterday and almost identical to the game like before that, I mean, that is nothing about positioning. It's just about stupidity.
Yeah. Going to piggyback off what Trevor said too is when you date back to these previous seasons, and I will say this for Pirlo as a criticism of him this season, but this is something that's been building over years. We struggle when teams park the bus.
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
the time where the tactics and the positioning become an issue.
Yeah,
because we fall apart in terms of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We used to get by on it back in the Mandzukic days because
the thing
go in there and wreck house.
The thing is, this season, all of our attacks have come from the wings, and teams know that. It's a pretty simple strategy. It's also a simple strategy to defend. You make sure your defensive winger and fullback are in position, and you make sure your centre backs are ready to head the ball, and you're kind of set up, like, and then it's just a numbers game. Like you've seen Cuadrado put millions of crosses into the box over the course of the season to get goals, and he's got a lot of assists because of it, but that's been our tactic. So teams can just set up with a low block, cover the wings, and get ready to clear it from the middle, and because we've got no creativity in midfield, and that's the problem.
Yeah, this is the thing is I see the change there because with Sarri I was left just thinking, holy shit, I don't think we're gonna find a goal, period.
Yeah.
Now it's like, fuck guys, just put it in. Like, score a goal. And again, yesterday, a lot of frustration from Juventini in the terms of how many crosses we were just whipping in there. But here's the thing. You're winning all of those aerials. Torino was a shit show at the back. And if you're going to win them all and get these free headers, yeah, sure, keep taking, because it's easy creation. They didn't force us to have to play through the ground by any means. And we were getting to all these ones, and Sirigu made a couple big saves, and the rest it just wasn't falling. But Chiesa gets a volley from 10 yards out to the left. You got to force a save there at the minimum.
Yeah.
Chiesa gets sent in by Ronaldo a couple minutes later. Just absolutely blasted. It goes right at Sirigu. You know, you've got Morata sent clean through.
Yeah.
He doesn't even hit the ball correctly if you watch that replay. He
Morata,
absolutely flubs the thing.
he's just abysmal. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know
He's struggling.
at the beginning of the season loved him. I knew it was coming. This whole downfall of him was coming.
Well, he's a streaky guy, and the thing is that honestly, this is the one thing I do appreciate about Pirlo is that he's actually giving you the most insight out of Allegri. Didn't give you as much insight for sure. He kept his cards close to his chest.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Sarri that you don't even want to listen to the guy talk anyways. But Pirlo, he said, he goes, Morata's in his head. He's a sensitive guy, and there's another issue. Who's your option outside of that? There's no other 9 on this team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Morata is now starting to play himself in a situation where maybe they don't even want to renew a 10 million loan.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think during these times.
Yeah.
And again, we talk about this, and here's a scenario from Eric coming in. I don't blame Pirlo for lacking in possession chances created there. I blame Pirlo for putting players in the same position to continuously make the same mistakes. My rebuttal is most of these guys making those mistakes aren't in unnatural positions.
No, they're not. They're playing 4-4-2.
An absolute shit show. He played at left back. He is a left back. Morata is a number 9. He played as a number 9. Not good enough.
Yeah.
Danilo played in the middle. Okay, put Rabiot there, and then we'll just shit on them for having a Rabiot Bentancur midfield again.
Yep.
These are my things, but right across the line, again, position or not, there was no fight in a derby. That's a problem. And whether you want to talk about Pirlo not being able to motivate these guys, you've got a 23-year-old that is super motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Our vets haven't matched him. In one match this season, I've seen maybe Chiellini go a couple times where I'm like, there's the Chiellini we know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but Ronaldo, yeah, he's had a couple matches where you're like, yeah, there we go. But again, in this one, and I'm not afraid to say it, I don't care. I'll lose followers, whatever. It is what it is. He was abysmal in the first half.
Yeah.
Ronaldo?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
The first half was abysmal.
Yeah,
and
no, he wasn't good. He just wasn't.
If we can't bank on those guys, you want to make a change, a coach. Again, I get it. You bring in, so here's the report today is that Agnelli was invited Allegri or whatnot. They were watching this derby on TV or whatnot, and it's getting closer to this rumor that Allegri's going to come in to save top 4. Okay, here's my thing.
Yeah,
do you need a coach to
no
get the best out of Cristiano Ronaldo? Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't need a coach to motivate him.
No,
he doesn't need it. The fact that he was abysmal for a first half, and honestly, his attitude hasn't matched for a while, I think he's checked out. I honestly think he's not staying beyond this season.
I think he's checked out as well, and we've been saying it for quite a while. Yeah,
I think I've been saying it like for pretty much since the first quarter of the season beyond. I mean, Ronaldo, and I mean, like you said, I mean, should probably take my Twitter handle out of my name down there, but like Ronaldo has just been poor. And I think people say, well, he doesn't get the passes from the midfield. We've seen him in the past 2 years doing it without the midfield, and he's been doing it fine. This season is something different. We see him on international break. He has Fernandes behind him on international break. I'm a Portuguese fan. I watch the Portugal national team. Ronaldo was not good at there either. He's almost starting to become negative for the team, like Kulusevski and Bentancur, where he runs in and he tries to do some little fancy footwork and he messes it up and gives away possession. And then he sits back and he doesn't run back to get the ball. He sits there and stays offside. And let's say somebody back there like Chiellini or De Ligt wins it back and tries to pass it back up. Ronaldo's offside.
Still offside.
Yeah.
So and this is the thing, is he's still scoring a lot of goals. He's got a lot of goals this season for you. He's also got a ton of chances missed that are difference makers. So it's like you take the good with the bad, right?
Yeah.
But to say he's not getting any service, I don't know. He's got 31 goals, but again, it's the attitude that I'm just speaking to. I feel like he's not, those games where you look at him, and we talked about it in this game. The mentality, the look, the attitude, the body language when they come out at halftime speaks volumes, man. But
having a laugh.
The attitude and body language of CR has been off for a few months now, like Colin said.
It has.
We've
criticized him a lot.
The goals are there, but the honeymoon phase is over. And Juve's got they've got some serious decisions to be made at this club. Some serious decisions. I want to get your thoughts. And the guys joining us live, AJ can probably sit this one out because we know what he'll think. But Allegri back. Wow.
I'm surprised. Okay. So first thing I want to deal with is that article, right? Saying Allegri and Agnelli were sitting down watching the match. How in the name of God does any journalist know that? Do you think they can just walk up to the window and go, oh, there they are sitting down watching in the living room. They're having a nice cup of tea and they're watching the game. If you believe that, if you believe whoever wrote that, I mean, honestly. Now, that's not to say Allegri isn't being considered, but do not base it on that kind of an article. Whoever wrote that is just...
Of course.
They're just typing whatever. Dude, that's crap.
It's fuel to the fire is what it is.
It is what it is. It's speculative clickbait crap.
But honestly, you could see it. You could see it happening. Would not be surprising. Honestly, if we were to get rid of Pirlo, there's nobody out there I would be like, yeah, let's bring him in right now. Other than probably him, really, which is crazy. But I have my problems with that too.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Pirlo should not be going. I mean, I love Allegri, but I think the fact that we would go back to Allegri, we're just going back in time. And although he's a fantastic coach, but we saw him go stale at the end of the 5 years, and people wanted him, his head on a board. So I don't think going back in time is a good idea. I think you stay with Pirlo. As we've discussed, it's not necessarily Pirlo's fault, the reason that we're losing games right now. I mean, of course, it's kind of expected in considerations, and expectations have to be lower. But at the end of the day, unless we get a manager available, ready, like Guardiola, Zidane, I mean, why would we take anybody else? Just leave it with Pirlo. Maybe do some better, picking on players, and just roll with that. I think I love Allegri, and although I was for the first, couple minutes of it, super excited to see him back if he were to come back. But I mean, that's I just don't think it's the right idea. And I saw somebody say yesterday, you cannot expect Cristiano Ronaldo to not play Champions League football this season. So that's why they will be bringing back Allegri at some point. And I thought about it and I was like, that's damn true. Ronaldo probably won't want to play Champions League football. I mean, Europa League football, if that. And they very well might just sack him just to keep Ronaldo happy because of the marketability that guy's jersey brings.
I can't help but keep going back to that beautiful way Romeo Gresti put it. What was it? The unbearable army of nostalgia. Was that it, Colin?
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Give me 2 seconds. It was the unbearable nostalgic army. Yeah.
Army of nostalgia.
Of nostalgics, yeah.
Even Eric coming in here saying he hates the argument about taking a step back as if we didn't go back for Lippi. How did that work out, though?
And Trapattoni. And again, how did that work out? Yeah.
It wasn't the same. Lippi even did the comeback for Italia, and it went even worse than his comeback for Juve. It's tough, man. It's tough. Anthony coming in here saying too many people on here don't know what it's like to date an ex-girlfriend. It won't work. The likely won't work. Again, for multiple reasons that I've stated during this pod, it's just not. You can bring Allegri back. I'm fine with it, but is that the long-term solution?
No.
It's not to say that management wasn't wrong. They've obviously shown that they've made errors, even in the transfer market. The fact that we're chasing Moise Kean, who we had, and now he's like prime suspect that we're trying to get him back, and it's just like you absolute fucking tools. We had him. And he was scoring goals coming off the bench. He was doing great. There was no need. But the plus Valenza. Okay, great. Whatever. Regardless.
And the kid had the fight as well. He
had
the fight.
Yeah, he
did. Competition from the bench. Competition for starting spots. Keep the guys that are up there on the depth chart, keep them wanting to stay up there. Hey, this guy's hot on my tail. I got to get her going. Yeah. We have surrendered that through the years repeatedly for plus Valenza. This club has lost what made them who they were. Yeah. And they did it in the name of money.
That's the problem.
Marketability.
If you sell Keane and then you look for a number 9, you had a number 9. We struggled for last year and the year before for a number 9. You had a number 9. Why
they got greedy, didn't want to bite the bullet on dead weight a year too soon. And then they had to do it anyways. And Juve cost themselves. And they cost themselves even more because COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not that was a completely unforeseen thing, but here we go. The rah type, you need a guy that's yelling, that's screaming. No, coaches can be different styles. My fear, bring Allegri in. We're still generating. Are we going to still generate as many chances? Does our conversion rate all of a sudden go up? I don't know. But do you make the change right now to try and save top 4? Would you make a change at this moment in time? Your guys' personal opinion.
No.
Yeah, no, for me, it's a big no.
No? Colin, would you make the change right now?
Oh, no, I don't. I don't see that being a positive thing at all. Do I think...
Because the argument could be made that you just bringing in a new fresh face, a new set of ideas will hopefully just stimulate the players. It's that sense that, hey, we just got this guy fired. We need to pick up our shit. And hopefully that sparks the guys, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think it'll happen either. I mean, if you're thinking of it from a manager's perspective, you're like, okay, I'm going to go in there now. This is a sinking ship. Like, I mean, do I want to get hung for the results at the end of this season, or do I want to be the savior who comes and sorts it all out next season? I mean,
but I think it's win-win for anybody that comes in, because I think the expectation is already that this team's spiraling out of top 4. So I think there's nothing to lose from a manager's perspective. I think, hey, I could come in and I could be the hero that saves top 4, because that's where we've become. Okay. And even Chiellini, speaking to this, our goal of reaching Champions League football. What the fuck? Yeah, that's become our target now. That's a sad reality. So while a lot of people have this issue with him saying that, that's a reality. That's our new goal. That's what this season has become, is saving top 4.
In my opinion, we will make top 4. I think the Scudetto is lost, but I think we will make up top 4. It's definitely, I think it's viable, but I think bringing in somebody like Allegri to save the season, it's not worth it, because first of all, if he was here for the last, remaining 2 months of the season, maybe. But Allegri, first of all, is not going to do that for the last 2 months of the season. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to see Pirlo off. It's not. I don't even think it's going to ignite the players. I mean, we saw Sarri get sacked, and then the beginning of the season, it still wasn't even great. And of course, we saw, with COVID, he didn't have much training, Pirlo. But it didn't light a fire under their asses, and I don't think this would either. I think there's also a mentality with the players that this isn't their fault and this isn't their doing. I don't necessarily think they're blaming Pirlo, but they're not blaming themselves. So that's the problem lies. A firing of a manager, especially someone who was meant to revolutionize the team, that's not going to change anything. The only thing that it'll do is put the players back, because either now they're confused on what type of football to play. Do you want to see, one pass in, one pass out, 1-2s all time, or do you want to go back to Allegri's style of defensive football, scoring 1-0 and then sitting back?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
I agree with you, Trevor. They made a change. Obviously, Allegri notified them this squad needs to be overhauled. And they decided, maybe they agreed, but they ultimately decided it wasn't his job to overhaul them. They didn't want his philosophy. They wanted a new philosophy. And you mentioned Pep Guardiola earlier on. How long did it take him to actually to win at Man City?
Exactly.
He was incredibly successful with Barcelona, but he was a youth team coach with Barcelona. He coached those players, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, all together at Barca for years. And then when they all graduated together and it worked. But he went to Bayern Munich afterwards, and even though they kept winning the Bundesliga, it was still a relative failure until he moved on to Manchester City, and now it's working for him. But you're talking years.
Exactly.
Years.
We look at Atalanta, we're envious of Atalanta and how well they can, just play football, like genuine football, winning games 4, 5, 6, 7-0, like back, left, and right. We're envious of how Gasperini has done that. But Gasperini's been at Atalanta for how many years with those exact same players? They've built a squad around not only the coach, but also around the players. And now they've gotten the fruits of their labor redeemed to them. They made the Champions League last season and they made a lot of money from it. So you need to give it time. And it's hard to give it time when you're Juventus and you've won 9 years in a row. But the problem is we don't have any other options. The other option would be Allegri, and that's not the option. That's just moving backwards.
But for some people it is, and some people preferred the pragmatic approach to football, and in general, and I'm okay with that. But the club chose to move away from that. We saw that it wasn't working in the Champions League to actually, fulfill some of the bigger goals we have, and also it wasn't attractive enough to watch. Do you know what I mean? While I'm okay with a 1-0 win, guys, I'm okay with a 1-0 win.
Absolutely.
But for a lot of people, it isn't. For a lot of people want to see end-to-end football, teams getting carved open left, right, and center for 90 minutes, and that's they ultimately chose to move in that direction.
And again, it goes back to these things we discussed. Your chances generated start to become lower. You look for change. You're starting to get leaky at the back. You look for change. That change has happened. Just the results aren't happening. But again, different times, different things. So you look to Allegri's time, the core was still somewhat
in the prime,
somewhat strong, even in his last season, but it's gone. Bonucci is washed.
Yeah.
Bonucci's washed. Chiellini can't stay fit. Okay. Pjanic is gone. Khedira couldn't stay fit. Gone. Mandzukic, gone because of Sarri. And honestly, he was at the age or whatnot, people that were fighting for Mandzukic. Well, did he do anything for Milan? He did sweet fuck all. Okay,
I haven't even seen him.
Hurt.
I know.
He actually got hurt. It is what it is. Different times. If Allegri comes in, and this is for AJ who asked a question, and he put serious question, how are you so confident that nothing will change we bring a new manager. And why are you so confident? It's not that I'm confident nothing will change. I have my doubts because of where we're at. While we want to shit on Kuliszewski, we are also relying on these guys too heavily because of the roster. You're relying on guys that some are out of position. We have makeshift roles. You have no left back because I don't even consider Sandro a left back right now because he can't play it. You have issues all over the pitch. Those issues weren't there. They weren't there before. And even if you look back to last year, some of those issues were there, but it didn't matter because the coach fucking for sure didn't have the locker room. They couldn't generate a chance to save their life.
Yeah.
The fact that you go 70 minutes with like your first attempt being registered at 70 minutes, that's a problem. So now you've corrected one thing, but the other is starting to shine through. And that's the fact that your spine is decimated. And you are trying to form a new spine. And this is why I have my doubts that with a new manager, they still struggle in that regards. But one thing that would be saved is in-game management would be corrected with an experienced manager. And that I will give you. And maybe that gets you over the finish line in more matches. But I don't see it solving the whole.
No, it won't. And I think that it's a good point to put out that although like in general, I think we will make the Champions League, like I've said. I just think that in the back of my mind, I do think this season we will make it. But I almost guarantee you, if you hire Allegri, he will make Champions League this season, and next season we'll be back to the why did we bring Allegri back? Why, like change will be made this season. There will be something because Allegri, like you said, the in-game management will be enough to get us over the hump. But next season will be the exact same problem. It will be Allegri plays disgusting football, which I personally like a 1-0 win. I think it's awesome. But Allegri doesn't play. They want, what I like to say is they want tiki-taka football, Guardiola football for Pirlo price. It's not going to happen. You either give Pirlo time to grow or you hire Zidane or you hire Guardiola. You can't get Pirlo price and also get prime Barcelona, 2010 Barcelona for $3 million a year, whatever he's getting.
And that goes back to the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you cannot bring in a guy that had as much experience coaching as I did. You know, and actually, arguably, I might have more as I coach young guys. So
I heard you were a brilliant coach.
So here's the thing. You can't do that and expect a treble. So while the management was feeding that to us at the start of the year, I called bullshit right from the get-go. Everybody knew it was because of the money.
Absolutely.
It was because of the money. So we have to start looking at this. And again, I will take any victory. It's not about this. It's not that they're chasing 7-0 victories. It's that they just believe the sit back approach had to be changed. And part of it is because of the spine. The spine is gone. You used to have a wall. You used to be able to get away with that. You can't do it anymore. So you have to look for change. And again, if Allegri comes back and we have to go that route, I don't think it's going to be pretty if we want to try and put up a wall.
No.
I don't think it'll be pretty. And again, one of my other things is the club wants to get younger. Allegri was notorious for not having the trust in those guys.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect a team that wants to start getting these young guys and building that way? It's going to be tough. It's
not a good idea.
I think ultimately my frustrations are mostly with the management and them just having an actual plan that's outlined, that's set in stone. Because when you start to hear this, they're wishy-washy is how they come off to me. Paratici, Nedved, and Yeli right now for a few years are wishy-washy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It feels like since Allegri left, it wasn't moving on from Allegri. It was how they handled it that seemed like an absolute scramble.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you, Al. I mean, we talked about restructuring upper management a good bit lately. Would you accept Marcello Lippi at that echelon, a guy who's over Paratici, which is what's been talked about? I know it's been talked about in a few kind of spurious newspapers or publications, but
as a technical director, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would. Because to me, from the outside looking in, if we talk about wishy-washy and just the scatter, like just how scattered they seem, our signings haven't always made the most sense. And we are collecting players of the same traits. Our team building skills lack. So for me, here's a guy who knows how to build teams, knows how to approach what you want to achieve on the pitch. If the ideas are Pirlo's, I still see Lippi knowing how to help him achieve what he wants on the pitch.
I do too.
Manager in that facet, okay, in that aspect. I don't think there's a bad scenario if Lippi decides to come back, in my personal opinion, as a technical director. As a coach, no.
I don't think he's going to be a coach. I don't think the man.
The only reason I said it was because some were calling him a dinosaur and saying, no, we don't need him as a coach. He wouldn't be coming as a coach. It would be
He's never going to come as a coach. Yeah, I'd say he wouldn't have any interest in coaching at this stage of his life. He's probably, if he could just sit there and and speak to Cherubini and Paratici and just say, look, this guy is a Juventus player. This guy is not a Juventus player. Fuck off and get me another one. Don't talk to me about that guy. And if he could do that, I'd be happy with it. That's my view.
I love Lippi. He's my header on my Twitter. I love that guy. But I actually didn't know. Were we talking about Lippi taking Paratici's spot?
No. This would be
technical director, like an advisor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he would be.
I didn't see
he would
that.
be over Paratici and Cherubini, and
interesting.
And they would report into him. So he would be almost a go-between for Agnelli and Paratici and Cherubini and his team. So he'd be almost similar level to Pavel Nedved.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad idea. I saw somebody actually, now that I think about it, I saw somebody say Lippi's old. He hasn't watched football in a long time. And I'm like,
no.
I mean, of course I wouldn't know, but I'm sure he still follows players, and I'm sure he could be some kind of technical director, and I'm sure he'd do a fine job at it because of how good he was at his damn job when he was with us back in, a couple decades ago.
And Andra
in the 90s.
The management is scrambling all over the place. No long-term plan. Even if they had, the short-term plan for achieving that isn't showing for at least 2 seasons. We have a reality in front of us of this global pandemic, and it is slowing the reset that Juve's required now tremendously.
Yeah.
That's a fact. The amount of changes we're looking for are going to be hard to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
But I said it a while ago, and I'm going to say it again. I said it back in January. Strap on your seatbelts. It's going to get bumpy.
Yeah.
We are in a dangerous spot right now as a club because they lost their ways. Everything that made them succeed, they kind of lost. And I think there's a lot to be said. And I know, Colin, you're in our AJC team chat, and Lewis made a great point. The collective between Paratici and Marotta was strong. it was almost like they complemented each other quite well.
Yeah, they came from the same club, from Sampdoria.
Yeah.
Together. Yeah.
And I think now it's a little too one-sided, and then they lost sight of how we were actually succeeding. But if you look down this roster and you look at years past, you know, we always had the guys fall in line. We always had the right attitude on the pitch. We were a team nobody wanted to face, nobody wanted to line up against. It didn't matter how we played.
Yeah.
Because you knew these guys were going to fight till the bitter end.
Absolutely.
We've lost that. Is that on a coach? Part of it. Is that in the players? Yeah. These guys got to be willing to come in. I had a fear, and I talked about it when this pod first started. I had a fear that we were starting to look too much into these mercenaries in players. Guys that have no ties, no links to Juve, that don't get it and don't care. You know, so you start looking at these market opportunities, but you're missing out on the guys that want to come and play for you, that can offer a set of traits and availability, because maybe they don't hit your marketability targets or your exposure, whatever. And you start missing out on guys that could help. And you start missing out on skill sets and traits. You know, and sometimes we sign the same players. We went through one Mercado, we signed a bunch of wingers. And it's like, how many fucking wingers do you need?
Yeah.
You just lost 3 key guys in the midfield over 2 years, and we're signing 5 fucking wingers. What do we do?
I was so pissed off about Chiesa coming. I didn't think we needed him. Granted, I mean, he worked out, but
yeah, the thing is that, again, it's all got to make sense from the top down. And right now we're on a dangerous slope here of really, really losing it.
Mm-hmm.
Players need to look at themselves in the mirrors. If the club decides to fire Pirlo, that needs to be an eye-opener for all these guys, because for me, you have too many guys that are not of the cut to wear the kit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I think, that's something I was speaking about quite recently. And I think that people need to start taking this a little more seriously. We are used to winning, but we can very well go from winning like Milan 10 years ago, and we can now become Milan now. Milan has been horrible. And I think we can see that downturn of Juventus where we don't see winning for the next couple years, maybe 5, 6, 7 years almost, because at this point, it's in Juventus DNA to play like Allegri football. And now we have Pirlo, so we're transitioning there. But now we also don't have the likes of Buffon, Chiellini, and Bonucci and Barzagli being our top guys. So now we're transitioning from there. We're transitioning in all aspects. And the thing is management could do that great job at that. But the problem is they're doing an awful job at transitioning right now. And that's where I think we might see, if we don't take this very carefully, I think we might see a downturn of Juventus, and we don't even see a Scudetto even competition for the next 2-3 years minimum. We need to do this. This summer is the most important summer that we've probably ever seen in our history since 2010 or 2011. We absolutely need to see many, many players come in and many, many players go out. More players in than out. But that's just not going to happen. We don't have the money for it, and our management just I don't know if they frankly care.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's a big one. I just, again, think you're going to be handcuffed because of COVID and the lost revenues.
Absolutely.
I don't see major changes happening. Swap deals would be good, and some of these loan with obligations type deals, kind of similar to the Chiesa one. Things like that. Options like the Morata one, something like that. But it's going to be very, very challenging. The other thing is we have to sell. Yeah. We're facing 200 million euros in the hole as a deficit. It is said that Juve will be required to reach 100 million euros in the a positive.
And that'll be done by selling Dybala and Fagioli and players like that.
A Dybala swap honestly, the Dybala situation and now this whole thing, I think it just probably sealed his fate.
Yep.
Whether we want to call it we're humans and we're making mistakes or whatnot, it's just, for me, you're 28 years old. You are supposedly one of our leaders. It should have been him the one shutting it down, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact it didn't happen, it sucks. And I love Dybala. Everybody knows I love Dybala.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you can go back and forth with me on the Ronaldo thing, because it doesn't make sense to have Ronaldo right now. It doesn't. It doesn't make sense for you, and it doesn't make sense for Cristiano Ronaldo. It doesn't make sense for him either. He's at the stage in his career where he needs to be given opportunities to win again, and then probably move on to maybe MLS as he completely retires, right? But I just, it doesn't make sense. And again, if we're talking about a rebuild, how on earth does it make sense to do any type of reset or any type of rebuild when one of your players is taking a third of your team's salary?
Exactly.
How does that make sense in terms of a rebuild? I can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
Good ability.
So Dybala, whatever, regardless of where anybody stands on the Dybala thing, I don't know. You can't lose both because you open up too many holes that you need to fill.
Yeah. One
of them has to go, though.
One of them has to go. I think for sure. I think Dybala is gone. I've as long as I've been watching Juventus have never put up with this level of shit. Like, I mean, that party. Yeah, you made a great point. He should have been able to shut that thing down. But a couple of days later or a day later, his girlfriend goes on TV in Spain and says, "Oh, it's not that big a deal. We do it every week. We do it every week." My God.
I know.
I didn't see that.
Like,
wow.
She just needed to. She needs to not touch on the situation whatsoever, whatnot. And Paulo, he apologized and stuff like that. But again, the damage is done.
The damage is done. Yeah,
guys that couple could have helped probably. But
Juve have never been into guys who live the party lifestyle. Like I bring it back to Arturo Vidal coming back from the Copa America after being, let out of jail, for crashing his Ferrari drunk, DUI, and the Chilean coach Jorge Sampaoli begging the judge to let him out to play, and then he comes back to Juve. All of a sudden, it's buddy, I'm afraid you're gone. Good luck. Yeah. And that's how it's done. You just can't accept that. So I think he will go. I think we could get 40-50 million for him maybe, and I think that can be reinvested.
Yeah, it's just such a frustrating scenario to have to deal with. But yeah, it comes down to even certain jobs, everyday jobs. You have to make decisions based on the collective when you're part of a team.
Yeah.
You have to consider how it affects the club and your teammates. So while many were making the argument, we're going to ban these guys, we're going to lose to Torino and whatnot, and that's fucking bullshit. I disagree. It is not bullshit because there's a bigger picture that the club has to make that stance on. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have completed an absolute shit show, which it's kind of going that way regardless, honestly. It's a tough one, but they had to make that stance. In terms of Arthur, Dybala, McKennie, Romeo Grest reporting as of 20 minutes ago that they will be in for Juve Napoli. So they will be called up. And we'll just see where it goes. But again, all I can say for these guys is just strap on those seatbelts, fans. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah, it is.
AJ called it. We got big decisions. Big decisions need to be made by the club. Let's see what happens with Juve Napoli. If Pirlo goes, like I said, I got no ties. I'm indifferent. I need to see this team with a true plan. I need to have things make sense. That's what I'm looking for. And I needed to share my frustrations of why I'm leaning more towards the players needing to look themselves in the mirror, because we have good chance creation. We have low goals amount. It's just the same errors. And these are brain dead basic errors. Basic errors.
Same page as well.
And they're happening by vets, and they're happening by guys that aren't out of position.
Mm-hmm.
This is the frustrating part. So a lot of that is things that are out of control for any manager.
Yeah.
I would feel the same if this was happening to Allegri, even if Sarri had stayed. Okay, say Sarri didn't lose the locker room, I think he would have got another season. And then we would have been in almost maybe potentially a worse situation, because he couldn't even get chance creation. He couldn't even get chances created. Sorry, for Christ's sake. So now we're getting all that. At what point do our players just look in the fucking mirror and say, I need to be way better than this?
Yeah.
You know? It's just the sad reality. Again, we're banking on 23-year-olds, and they've been our best. What does that say about your core?
Absolute best.
They need to pick it up. The whole team needs to pick it up. The management needs to pick it up. Pirlo, his in-game management, I will say, is nowhere near where it needs to be. But I never expected that from the start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he made some
we've
changes
consistently said that.
Better. But the other thing is too, he hasn't been in this type of pressure or this type of hot seat. Exactly. And this is where this is the time, whether we're frustrated about it or not, this is where you grow. This is where you earn those stripes. But the argument is Juve should be a club where a guy grows and earns his stripes.
Absolutely.
And that's honestly, I think, a fair argument for many fans to make, is that it shouldn't be the type of club where a coach comes in green and grows. That to me makes no sense. And again, that's because the management got themselves into that position by scrambling, absolutely scrambling post Allegri.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm not defending Pirlo as saying he's free of blame, but honestly, what did we expect?
Yeah. It's one thing I do want to say, it's kind of separate but related. The managerial issue and the playing squad issue, for me, are separate. They are separate issues. It's not a case of, do you think the solution is revamp the squad under Pirlo or change Pirlo and keep the squad as is? For me, that the overhaul needs to happen. They were notified of it. I mean, and people who want Allegri back got to realize that's what he said to Agnelli. The squad needs to be overhauled, and the decision was to get rid of Allegri at the time. And maybe he didn't believe him that the squad needed to be overhauled, or maybe he did, and they just couldn't do it. But arguably both need to happen. I mean, if he doesn't qualify for a Champions League, then my vote is he's got to go. But but the squad needs to be overhauled.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that we look back and we see that Allegri said the squad needed to be overhauled, but then they didn't do anything about it. And then his football went stale. His football went stale because he needed players and you guys didn't give it to him. That's a managerial problem in and of itself.
I think I'm starting to have a theory that the management went a little too all in on the CR project.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
I think that Allegri probably sensed the issue because he had the issue. It's hard to cover for Ronaldo being on the club.
Yeah.
We didn't have the players to do so. Allegri probably called that out.
Mm-hmm.
And management probably said, well, shit, we don't have the money to do this. Let's get somebody that can deal with it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
it could have happened like that.
It
I have a
was
couple
that.
of good questions for Trevor, actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Trevor was saying that you watch Portugal a
Mhm.
good bit. Like, how does Ronaldo fit into that system? Is it a 4-3-3? Is it a 4-4-2? Is it a where does he line up? I mean, I only see highlights every now and again.
Yeah.
I don't watch a whole lot of
It's
football besides Juve.
I would say that he plays more towards more towards what we play at Juventus, or what he plays at Juventus, where he's a roaming forward, goes wherever he wants to. But I think in Portugal, he has to stay a little bit more grounded. He's usually in front of the midfield in the center, trying to look for, because he has good outlets over there to either pass the ball in or whatever. So he does play a lot more central than I would say than he does at Juventus. But at the same time, when I watch him over there, it's almost like you're watching Juventus. It's almost the exact same thing, where you watch the guy in the middle, and sometimes he'll come out left, he'll come out right, he'll get a pass here and there, he'll try to take a shot, hit the wall, hit another player, something like that, and then he just won't run back. He'll stay off sides. It's this pretty much the if you watch Juventus, you pretty much watch Portugal. I honestly think that Portugal does better, not without Ronaldo, but I think they operate pretty well by themselves. So if Ronaldo wasn't there, I don't think there'd be a major change. I think if you saw Ronaldo sit out for a game, you would probably see all the news outlets, doing the no Ronaldo, no problem. Because I don't think Fernandes, Neves, Neto, I don't think any of them would have a problem bagging in a couple goals by themselves. Ronaldo, of course, doesn't hinder that, but he also doesn't help it, is my problem.
But you can remember the last time we didn't play with Ronaldo from the start was Lazio, and I remember how we did live at the time, and we were just delighted. We loved that game. Do you remember that, Al?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad watches the game sometimes, and he always says that the reason that we play better without Ronaldo is because these players aren't looking for a pass to Ronaldo as that's their outlet. They don't know what to do with the ball. Give it to Ronaldo. You don't know what to. Ronaldo's there. He's the greatest of all time. Just give it to Ronaldo. You're scared of him. You're worried of him. You just want to make a good impression on him. I mean, footballers are people too. They're gonna be a little nervous when they see Ronaldo for the first time. Granted, the people like Dybala who have been with him for so long, or not for so long, but roughly 2 years, they're working together now. They're good. But players like other players behind Ronaldo, they just pass to him. They don't know what they're doing, so they give it to the guy who knows what he's doing. But now he's starting to decline because he's old, and he doesn't know what to do anymore. He can't. He doesn't have the twinkle toes anymore. He can't, just sit up and just start waving his feet around and make something happen anymore. He's not like that.
I mean, his numbers are still very, very strong.
They are.
Good, yeah.
He's so defiant almost in taking the natural progression into a center forward to extend his career.
Mm-hmm.
Really. Because this drifting thing, this rolling thing, he's lost a step. And a lot of the time you see him out on the side or whatnot, he'll get the ball, he'll do a couple of step overs, go lower, and just dish the ball off, and then he's miles away from goal.
Yep.
For me, if I'm Ronaldo, I want to be in the area as much as possible and getting the ball where I only have to be one guy and then have it rip.
Yep.
Yep.
But he loves this drifting and loves this rolling. He loves to start from further out and then move in. It is what it is. But naturally, most guys make the progression into being one of the center forwards, right? We'll see what happens. But it's just Juve in general right now. We'll finish off with this because everybody that's live. If we lose to Napoli, you still ride it out for the end of the year and then make a decision with Pirlo? Because Napoli these two games seem to be the ones that they were saying Pirlo will ride or die on, was the Derby and then Napoli.
For me, you ride it out. I don't think if you fire Pirlo, we're still not winning the Scudetto. So what's the point? There's no, we're not fighting for a trophy. We're fighting for Champions League football next season, and we're not going to win that. I can almost promise you guys we will not win the Champions League next season. Just ride it out, build the squad, management, listen to Pirlo and what he wants. Because if you fire Pirlo now at the end of Napoli, what's going to happen? You bring in, let's say we're bringing in Allegri. You make Champions League next season. We're not winning it next season. We don't even have a competent midfield. Unless you make big changes in the summer and you think with Allegri, you can make the big changes and you actually will make those changes, then sure, go ahead. But I think this management, we've seen that they don't have an idea what they're doing with the building the future of the squad. So why are you fire a guy who's the future and then move back into the past and then not do what either of the two guys want?
Well, the flip side to it is you're going to have a hell of a time getting some of the guys you want to get if you're not playing Champions League football.
That's also fair.
And you might lose some of the key guys that are on your roster now. That's the flip side.
Yeah.
So do you try to stop the bleeding, so to speak, if we go down to Napoli?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I've heard it said that Tudor would take over if that situation was if we got there. But I'll be honest with you, I don't have much faith in Tudor either.
Neither do I.
I've mentioned it a few times. Like anyone that I know who's been into Croatian football told me that he's not exactly loved over there.
Yeah. Well,
obviously we don't see what goes on behind the scenes, but I wasn't inspired by his by the choice to bring him in.
Yeah.
He runs our defense, by the way. Same defense that allows all the trailing runners to be unmarked and likes to play zonal, whatever. We will allow the lowest amount of goals, but can't seem to shore up man marking.
He did change the defensive system, and for me, that's the one thing I would never have changed about Juventus. How Juventus traditionally defend, I would never, ever change that. That would be madness. Obviously you need to have good guys in there, but I think we do have good guys,
Watch games. Watch how deep our mids drop back. Mm-hmm. They collapse right next to defenders. I've never seen that. I've always seen them at the top of the area, outside, and then your defense almost across the spot in lines and taking away all the options really. And to see it repeatedly is madness. AJ coming in with the question, what about Spalletti? Please don't laugh at me. Hard not to laugh at you, buddy.
Yeah. Okay.
Spalletti's that's a no for me.
It's a big no.
I say to all the Juventini, thanks for joining me and Colin and Trevor on this therapy session. Ride it out. I say let's wait and see what happens against Napoli. Yep. I don't have faith in Tudor as an intern. If you guys if the club wants to try to ignite a spark in these players for the remaining 9 matches by sacking Pirlo, that's great. I'm going to be demanding much more out of our players.
Yeah,
I'm going to be demanding that they play for the shirt, play for each other, play for their teammates, and start getting behind the cause. This party, while people say the media blew it out of proportion, is symbolic to me of how out of focus the club is in its entirety. Yeah. To sum up another thing of how out of focus this club is, Rabiot was handed Frabotta's kit when he was going to enter the pitch. We have lost focus on absolutely all. That's just a funny little thing that happened, but it just sums it up. We need to get back to who we are, who we were, Juve. The fight can be the one thing that should never be questioned in your players. That effort level needs to be picked up.
Mm-hmm.
And if people want to put that on the coach, that's fine. Put it on the players as well. That's the reality of it. The sad reality is we need work. We need improvement from all aspects in all areas. I do feel for Pirlo. Maybe he bit off more than he could chew. I think he did. But not a lot of people are going to turn that down.
No.
And it could have been crazy for him if it worked out. You know what I mean? So he took a stab at it. See what it is. We still have a Coppa Italia final to play.
Yeah.
It's got potential to win that trophy. Win the Super Coppa. Let's see if top 4 is achievable. And if he goes after Napoli, a bit of a fall guy. But again, I think we're all in agreement. Juve just shouldn't be a club where a guy earns his stripes in terms of management. I think that's a sentiment we can all kind of agree with.
Yep.
So while I'm with the project and the shift and what they want to do, it's a tough one. It's a tough one when you look at that side of it. And again, I can't help but stress what we saw in terms of the improvement was things we weren't getting last year. We are now. It's just the conversion rate is minuscule again.
Yeah. So
everybody just needs to look at themselves, and we'll see what happens. But strap on your seatbelts, guys, because the dynasty has come to an end, I fear, and it's time to see how the club reacts. My eyes, as I stated a while ago, will be solely on Agnelli. It's his time now to show why we need to have our faith in him. That's how I feel.
Absolutely.
But we'll see what happens. No matter what, though, Forza Juve, fino alla fine.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely. Thanks again, everybody who joined live. Thanks again to the great guests. And we'll talk before and after Napoli. Let's hope for a victory.
Thank you.